You're listening to the What's Happening podcast with Gary Watts.
Good morning. I'm here with Eric Krob. Eric is the owner of Elite Stone, KBD Cabinets, and Illuminate Lighting studio. Eric, how are you?
Great.
Also, the defensive coach at Mount Vernon football, right?
Absolutely.
And it is football season.
Full swing. We've already had practice this morning.
I was with my daughter last week and they're mowing a yard, and I said, that smells like football when I get that grass going. They're mowing it.
Best time of year.
So, hey, Eric, tell us about yourself, your family, if you want, your background, how you got started, where you come from, and I'll just let you roll on whatever you want to discuss. But we'd love to get to know more about you.
Absolutely. Born and raised in eastern Iowa, so Iowa native.
Lisbon?
Lisbon.
All right.
Yeah, correct.
Lisbon Lions, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Haven't ventured too far.
Okay.
Currently married to my wife, Stacy. We have 7 boys, 4 biological sons, 3 sons that we adopted from Haiti.
Tell us that story, how you went down to Haiti on a mission trip. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll back up just one step.
Yeah.
We had our 4 biological sons, and just as we progressed in life, kind of had a calling to adopt. So what we were thinking is maybe one daughter domestically, thinking that might round out the family. In the midst of that, so as we started that process, we were working with an adoption agency in Chicago, and we were about halfway through the process to qualify. And in that interim, I had been going to Haiti on several missions trips, working with some fellows from church. And during that, one of the missionary families that was stationed in Haiti was going to take a summer off to come back to the States and kind of refresh. And so we were asked if we would take their place for a summer, and we volunteered. So my entire family, Stacy and our 4 boys, went, and we spent 9 weeks in Haiti in their place. Just had a wonderful, wonderful experience. And during that time, Stacy worked at a nursery neonatal care and really got to connect with some Haitian women who had recently had babies or who were close to delivering. So when we came home, she thought it was really laid on her heart that we should adopt from Haiti. Fantastic. So then we were thinking one daughter from Haiti, still a good round out to the family. So when we got home, we thought, well, we'll probably have to shift gears. And since we're doing an international adoption instead of a domestic, we'll probably have to find a new agency, start the process all over again. And kind of through God's sovereignty, we called the adoption agency in Chicago and said, hey, we hate to do this. There's been a lot of due diligence, but we're going to shift gears. And they said, oh, that's perfect. Our number one international connection is Haiti. So we didn't have to change a thing. We just changed the direction we were going, which worked out great. So that sped up the process. So fast forward a little bit, we get all of our paperwork done. So we're at that final stage where the adoption agency actually shows you potential children to adopt. So I was on another missions trip in Haiti, and Stacy got an email from the agency showing that there were 3 Haitian brothers up for adoption, which, that makes them a special case because adopting 3 at a time limits, which families would be up to doing that. So she sent me this email and said, what do you think? And I said, well, we've already got 4 boys and all the clothes, so let's do it. So
no girl, huh?
No, we tried. We tried 4 times biologically, 2 times adoption, and God must have known that I was not equipped to raise girls, so we stayed with the boys.
So how old were they when you adopted them?
Oh boy, this is where I need Stacy here, but I'm just going to wing it. I want to say 4, 5, and 7.
Wow.
So not infants, but still fairly young.
And they didn't want to break them up, right?
Correct. They wanted to do everything they could to keep them together.
And they were in an orphanage, or what were they?
Yep, they were. So after the big earthquake in Haiti, there's varying stories about how it all transpired, but at some point, the Haitian government found them on the streets, brought them in, and then delivered them to an adoption or an orphanage that had a government connection. So that's how they got to the orphanage.
Tell us about Haiti. You were there 9 weeks. I don't know
Yeah.
much. Haiti's next to Cuba, right?
Yeah, not too far.
Or just right
Yep,
neighbors.
yep.
So
Shares the island with the Dominican Republic. So
okay.
yeah, I mean, Haiti's a fascinating story. Being there for longer than a week. So, most missions trips, you fly in, you're there for 5 to 7 days, you fly out. And, I want to temper it that I experienced people that were coming there with the absolute best intentions, just pure desire to help the Haitian people. But when you're able to be there for 9 weeks isn't long, but it's an extended time where you got to see groups come and go. And there's so many things that are done with good intentions in Haiti that in the long term do not serve the people well. And I'll just give one quick example. And again, I want to preface it that these are all people leading with the best intentions. But, we would experience a group coming down who would fundraise probably for the bulk of a year, in their U.S. Group, whether it's a church or a community group, and wanting to come down and serve the Haitian people. So they would come down to the community we were in, buy, 250, 350 bags of rice, and then spend the week going out and distributing that rice to the most needy families. So on the surface, great, admirable, nothing wrong with that. Well, I got to know the local merchants very well. And after this rice is distributed, they would go a week to 2 to possibly 4 where their sale of rice would be extremely limited because of this flood of free rice that just hit their market, all on a micro scale. And so we would have a lot of Americans come down and say, why can't these Haitian business people figure it out? What would it take to get them to be able to run a business or an entity like we do in America? Well, I came back and shared that with my team. If someone were to come to Eastern Iowa and hand out 500 homes of free countertops, it's not going to go well for Elite Stone for the next, 3 to 6 months. And so it's just Haiti is a study where I just think there's a miss between the intention and the result and what they actually need. And for whatever reason, it's been decades where someone, they just can't get to the middle of what is truly a help and what's a gift of a scorpion.
Are generally people needy there? I mean, it's really below the poverty line. What's the basis of the economy? I don't know much about Haiti.
Yeah, there's really not much now. It used to be agriculture. Haiti was a phenomenal agricultural center, but the land has just been devastated and just stripped. So the cooking method is done with charcoal. And so every tree that can be cut down has been stripped, and then it's converted to charcoal so that can be sold at the market. So if you look at the landscape, it's extremely barren. So agriculture, there is some, but it's not enough to sustain a culture. So really, the financial culture is just waiting for the next package of help coming from whomever. So it's very, very difficult. I think the long term, which would be extremely difficult. So I'm not saying I'm smart enough to figure this out, but it would be that the people, the nations, and outside entities that are trying to help would just need to step back, and you would just have to let the Haitian people build up their own economy. The difficulty with that is in that interim from the step back, there's going to be suffering and pain, which is, very difficult, and we don't like to see that. But at some point, people would have to let them step up and redefine their own economy and country.
Is it what form of government? Dictatorship?
It's an elected, but again, everything in Haiti is smoke and mirrors. And again, I don't want to make a blanket statement because there are very, very well-intentioned politicians, but unfortunately, there's a lot of politicians that are stealing elections, whether it be by force or money. And so it's just so dark and cloudy that nothing is as it seems.
Yeah. There's a lot of Haitians that get on boats and come to Miami, don't they, or
Yeah.
Florida?
Yep.
I mean, try to get out of there and whatever,
Yeah.
escape.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
And when you go there, every single person that you interact with wants to get to the U.S. Now, some of their perceptions are not based on reality, but you could throw a dart on any place on the globe and it'd be better than being in Haiti. So,
well, let's get back to, okay, so your family. So
Yep.
what's it, tell us a little bit. I don't really know much about the adoption process.
Yeah.
And I've heard Chicago kind of, with lawyers or whoever handles that.
Yeah.
Because people that, that want to add to their family or don't have children and want to adopt, that's quite a process. Can you tell us briefly a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. And we were very fortunate. Ours went as smoothly as we could expect, but still it was about a 2.5 year process. So, it's a lot about the expectations that going into it, there's, you just have to understand what you're dealing with to really temper the expectations and the frustration. But number one is just picking the correct adoption agency, really diving in to find out what is their history, background, interviewing people that have adopted through them, just making sure you're connecting with a really reputable, pure organization that's not in it for the money. And then from there, where do you want to adopt from? So different international adoptions, different countries or regions have their own challenges. So really dialing into where there are successful adoptions taking place today, so you can understand that process. And so for us, it was just the normal, going through the social, psychological screening interviews on the front end. The adoption agency wants to understand who your family is, who you are, if you're equipped. And I'll just take a sidebar that adopting these 3 boys, one of the best things we've ever done, but also one of the most difficult. And not just for us, for them as well. And you don't want to go into it with this perception that it's all, fairy dust and it's just going to be this romantic, this story that's, going to be a Hallmark story.
Right.
And there's aspects of it that can be, and it's beautiful. But it's, literally, and I don't want to, this is not to sound crass, but we got to spend, maybe 6 to 8 hours with our boys. And then you fly home. And so you're bringing 3 strangers into your home. And again, it's probably more difficult for them. So I'm not trying to say that, it was a burden for us. You think of these 3 little boys coming from this culture, and then being on a plane and they, blink and they're in this crazy environment. So,
do they speak English?
Junior, who was the oldest boy, did somewhat, and the younger 2 boys were very limited. So Junior was able to interpret, which was a huge blessing. If he wouldn't have been able to, we probably would have had to connect to someone here in Eastern Iowa that could have bridged that gap. So that was a tremendous help that he was able to connect messages back and forth for the first, handful of months.
Right. So you're posed with all kinds of situations where, I don't know if I call them problems, but just to integrate the kids with your existing kids, or
all of it, so all of it. We, you go from 4 boys who are used to the way our family and household functions. And that's completely disrupted. You go with birth order. So our youngest biological son, he's the baby of the family. And all of a sudden, there's 2 brothers younger than him. Then just the culture of what they faced in Haiti. And it's perfectly logical and rational that because food was so limited, if you had the opportunity to get your hands on food, you grabbed and hoarded every bit you could get. Well, when you come here, we don't have that problem. Thankfully, we've been extremely blessed. So, but that's ingrained in them. It's that survival mode. So, you talk to a lot of adopted families, you have the challenges of, during the middle of the night, the boys would get out of their rooms and they would go raid the refrigerator or freezer, and they would pile food up in their rooms and hiding places. And again, completely natural knowing where they came from, but just trying to work through that. Then stealing again in Haiti, you don't have anything. So if you see something that's you have the opportunity to grab, you're taught you better grab it. So then we had all the issues of the new boys, stealing things from our biological boys, and again, completely rational and logical that you would expect that behavior, but still you can't accept that behavior.
Right.
So trying to temper and what I always worked through with the boys is that while they're under our household, it's kind of like, if you steal something, we deal with it internally. When you're 21 and see a car that looks nice and you steal that, dad can't bail you out. So we need to learn those lessons now to take with us the rest of our life. And we went through probably, I'd say 3 to 4 years of just extreme difficulty. And then it really, really started to turn around. And now it's just fantastic. They have their issues just like my biological sons have their issues, and it's just all equitable now. But our family, that's our family, and it never could have been without them.
Can't imagine the environment they came from. A lot of things of the way people act or what they do is an environment, obviously. And that leads me to another thought I had when I was first moved to Iowa City. I met a professor. He was, I think, a professor in math. He's from Romania. And he fled communist country and got here 20, 30 years before. But what he couldn't believe is when we talked to him, he first got here, then he got his family over here for a long period of time. It was awful. And he told me stories about Romania, which I won't even get into, which is just mind-boggling. But one of the things that I said, well, what do you enjoy most about United States or Iowa City area? He said, grocery stores. You talk about food. He couldn't believe Hy-Vee.
Yeah.
You walk in, there's all this food, milk, whatever they need.
Yeah.
Just all. He just shook his head. He was so tickled that he could get food. And you talk about that. We take that for granted.
Yeah.
That's why I'm always amazed, in the political climate, and I'm not getting into politics, but talking about all what's wrong with us. Let's talk about what's right with us, because anybody that's been anywhere else other than the United States will come back, and veterans and been on foreign war, whatever, they come back and say, thank God they're here in the United States, of what we have, what we offer. Yeah, we have our issues, but, God bless America. I can get going on that, but I won't. But and I can't listen to people that tear it down all the time, because there's so many good things that we have. Yeah. So let's get into a little bit of family there, which is really inspirational. Let's talk about Elite Stone, which is you've just been on a fantastic path with KBD and then also Illuminate. Tell us a little bit about your background in business, and then how you've got to this point, and talk about a little bit. I get a lot of people at the universities here, and you get people that go to business schools and stuff, and they have no clue of entrepreneurship, no clue of what it takes to be successful in business. And they think they can get it out of reading books or listen to a professor, which, it gets you a start, I suppose, and it's probably a good start. But talk about sleepless nights. Talk about what you did to scrape and earn and to pay back and worry to get you where you're at today.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, I'll just start way back that my father and mother were both self-employed. So I think, from an early age, I kind of had that entrepreneurial fire lit in me. Background, so worked in my dad's business. He owned a body shop, used car lot. So I lived in his shop my entire childhood. So I knew what it was like, that when you're self-employed, the clock doesn't exist, the calendar doesn't exist. So I had a good understanding of that. Went to Central College, got a degree in economics, and I couldn't agree more. There's value in that type of a learning platform. I won't say there's not, but it's limited as far as what's going to drive you to be successful.
I got to stop you on Central. Yeah, talk about Central football, and then tell the listeners the Coach Skipper story when he came and recruited you at Lisbon. Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah. So Central football.
Yeah.
So one sidebar, I got to keep us going. We'll never get done, but I got to one of the true privileges of my life is I've got to be coached by two of the greatest coaches in the history of Iowa, let alone America, Ron Skipper at Central Football and Brad Smith at Lisbon Wrestling. Just unbelievable what you can learn. That'd be a whole nother episode. But anyway, yeah, I got to play for Ron Skipper. Well, coming from Lisbon, we're a wrestling school. So my senior year, 1988, was the first year in Lisbon school history that we made the football playoffs. And anybody listening, I want to make sure I emphasize this. I was a decent Class A football player, so not going to go Division I, wasn't going to turn the world upside down. But my cousin and I were both good, small class football players. Well, being a wrestling school, football was never on the horizon. So we didn't understand really the culture of college football. We didn't understand, who the players were. But we wanted to go play college football. That's all we knew. We had no clue. So one day, my cousin and I are in class, and we get called to the high school administrative office. And our old office at Lisbon kind of was surrounded in glass where the secretary sat. And when we got there, several of our teachers were standing at the glass window looking into the office. And we thought, well, that's kind of odd. I wonder what's going on. So we get ushered in, and there's a little room within the larger office, and we got ushered in and sat down at a table. And here's this fella. I've never heard of Ron Skipper, don't know anything about Central. And he sits us down. He doesn't ask us about our accolades. He doesn't talk about stats, anything like that. He sits us down and he said, I'm looking for three things: a scholar, a gentleman, and an athlete. And if you think you can be those three things, then you can come to Central and football and play for me. And I'm sure there were some more things, but basically that was it. He got up and left. And we just looked at each other. It's like, what just happened? Yeah. And we went for one visit and said, that's the only place we're going to look. Yeah. And being able to play for him for 4 years was just unbelievable experience. I wish, like most of us do, if I could have gone back and talked to my younger self. I knew what a privilege it was, but I didn't soak up, every opportunity to take advantage of that. So that was our Ron Skipper story. I think it's maybe the first time of football, he had been to Lisbon to recruit for football, and it was like a celebrity walking in, and we had no idea.
And if you don't know who Coach Skipper is, I think what he coached 40 years at Central, 40 years, 85% winning record.
Yeah.
Usually recruited a lot of small town Iowa kids, Iowa guys.
Yep.
Always they'd bring it every Saturday. I mean, if you watch Central, they were always in the top, either win it or in the, what do you call the division? It's Wartburg, Buena Vista, William Penn. What
Division III, and now it's the
Central Iowa. I don't know what it is.
Iowa Conference.
Yeah. Anyway, I got a chance. I was at a camp. Was around him a little bit, and there was a certain intensity level there.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So,
and I was only like 16 or 17, but we had to pay attention in camp. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, he was a fireball. Yeah, he got after it for sure.
He was also. They won in 1974. They won the national championship at Central, and some of my friends played for that team. And then he was also the president, I think in the late 70s, early 80s, of all college football, all the college coaches.
Yeah.
Skipper was.
Yeah.
So that tells you how powerful he was and how well respected he was in all the coaching circles.
Right. He's in all the Hall of Fames and just, extremely respected.
So now we're getting into, Central football, how does that help you? We're going through, you had a degree. With life lessons in football and coaching, how does that help you starting your business? And I'll let you go with your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So just one more football, and then we'll go ahead because it'll tie in. So I'll never forget when we were back in the day, we could start football camp at Central with 3-a-days. So we'd go 3-a-days, 2-a-days. So everybody talks about, the old days were 2-a-days. Yeah. We did 3-a-days. Yeah. And I'll never forget because it's one of the few times I've stopped time to have a conversation with myself and just talked while I was laying there on the field. It's probably weather like we're having right now, and saying, whatever happens in the rest of your life, it'll never be this bad. Yeah. Well, little did I know that it can get worse. Yeah. But anyway, just taking those lessons, that what you go through, if you're never going to back down, if you're never going to stop charging ahead, I think you take that from athletics to apply to business. And I think that's why there's such a a connection. It doesn't have to be, it's not a fixed rule, but you tend to see a lot of people that are successful in business that have some type of a background in athletics or, some high achieving activities in their background.
But that's life. Are you going to lay there in the field? Or are you going to get up and do something? You
Yeah.
probably remember plays at Central. You probably remember a score or somebody did this or a block or
Yeah.
it just certain things pop up when you're doing your business career. You didn't quit here. You had to do this. You remember certain practices, I imagine, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just as you get, it's like sometimes I'll come up with something like, in 1972, my wife will go, how do you remember this crazy stuff?
Yeah.
And I can remember what time it was almost and who did what.
Yeah,
what color
absolutely.
shoes he had.
Yeah.
The fast guys back then had white shoes.
Exactly.
There's only one on each team. But anyway.
Exactly.
So let's get back to
so going
Elite
ahead.
Stone.
Yep. So I get out of college, go to work for Nash Finch for 3 years, went through their management training program. Great experience. Grocery business is extremely difficult, but tons of lessons that I learned from that. Great experience. After about 3 years, my stepfather, along that period, my mom and dad had divorced. My mom remarried. My stepfather was an entrepreneur, business owner. So he was looking at acquiring a commercial flooring company in Davenport. And so he asked if I would come run that for him, which I jumped at. It was an opportunity where I wasn't the owner of the company, but it was closer, to be getting into a family business and being more on that ownership side. So I did. So I jumped at that opportunity. That was Hawkeye Flooring Company. So we did terrazzo floors and tile all across America. So just a point of reference, the Coral Ridge Mall, we tiled the entire mall, Lindale Mall in Cedar Rapids. So we would travel all around America doing those types of projects.
So you're on the road a lot.
A lot, yeah.
How'd you do that with your family? You must have an amazing wife.
I
right?
do, yeah. For sure. Yeah, it was extremely difficult, very, very unfair for her, especially as we had young children. But you're kind of in that survival mode.
Right.
And when you're in it, and I'm not going to sit here today and say I made the right decision. I don't know. That'd probably be a better question asking her. But when you have everything in your DNA, again, reflecting on sports, that I'm not going to quit or give up,
right.
Until that last whistle blows or that ref drags me off the field, right. I'm not going to stop. So I was in that mode of this is a disaster. I've got crews. The difficulty of that twofold, just the commercial construction industry is difficult with retainages and, all of your sunk profits. So that was a layer of challenge. And then because we were all over the country, I was putting foremen in charge of basically running, micro businesses. So if you go to Denver Children's Hospital and run a $500,000 flooring project, you're basically running a micro business to extract profit out of that $500,000 project. Well, and it wasn't unfair. I was putting them in the wrong seat of the bus. Now, I was young enough that I didn't understand that. So as I would go lead a job and we would try to make a profit, I was losing money in 3 others. So anyway, long story short, in the midst of that, my stepfather passed away. I bought the company from my mom, but I just knew that this was not a sustainable path, especially with a family. And so looking for other opportunities, I met a gentleman out in Omaha. We were out doing the federal courthouse in Omaha, and he gave me a tour of his countertop shop. And I thought, ooh, that's attractive because it's grounded. Your shop is not going to move. And if I could start that shop near my home, I could maybe be in my bed at more, which gets me more time with my wife and children and makes me a better husband and father.
How long ago was this?
That was probably 25-ish years ago. And so we operated that for about 10 to 15 years as just kind of a sideline business because I was still out trying to pay the bills and make payroll, doing the commercial flooring. So I was paralleling all of these businesses. And then about 10 years ago, I finally just made a mark in the sand and said, I'm not going to bid any more commercial flooring work. We're going to work off our backlog, and then we are going to pour all of those resources into the countertop business. And God blessed us that we were able to bring every flooring employee over to the countertop business. I did not have to lay off one person. And then that's when the countertop business kind of started to take off.
I want to go back to survival mode. You talked about it. Imagine you were in debt.
Yeah.
So every morning you got up, you had to pay the debt back. You had crews that you had to set up or they wouldn't be paid.
Yep.
And so that's the mind of an entrepreneur, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And
I mean, it isn't like you're just skating around, you're working 8 to 5 and you go home and it's a piece of cake. And then, so you really dug in and made something about it, right? I mean, you made it into Elite and all your companies, but that was through all the hard work and through your parents being entrepreneurs and whatever. And you just kind of inherited that and you took that. It wasn't an easy way, was it?
Not at all. No, it's, and like I said, I still don't know, the jury's out. I don't know if that's because I'm a tough guy, I'm stubborn, or not very intelligent. I'm still trying to figure that out. But I will tell you, I'll bare my soul a little bit here because I'm in the midst of this kind of transition period where our businesses right now, we are blessed that we have some unbelievable younger workers, managers coming up that want to be the next generation. I mean, that's every business owner's dream.
How have you instilled that in them? Where do they get that?
Well, I think lead by example.
Okay.
So I think that's a big part of it. And then I think one of the biggest ones that I try to take onto the football field or anything in life is you don't command respect, you earn respect. And so I try to follow that. I fail, but I try to follow that where none of my employees have ever been asked to do anything that I have not done or wouldn't do, and they know that. None of my employees have ever been put into a position that I wouldn't be put in or I haven't been put in. And so I hope that I have earned their respect. I hope that I have been an example to them about the you can't stop mindset. But here's the issue I'm dealing with now. And we just had a meeting about this, that I carry this baggage. And again, you don't want to digress, and you don't want to beat them over the head that I had to walk to work uphill, 50 miles every day and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is I worked 24, 48 shifts for years. I would, go work the night shift at a project, go work the office, maybe sleep for an hour, and did that for years on end, drive overnight to Pennsylvania to check on a crew. So, that is what it is. That's my story, and I chose to engage in that. But now, as we're getting ready to slowly start to integrate the next generation, which I'm thrilled about, man, I've got employees that'll do better than I have. I guarantee that if you look ahead 25 years, they're going to do things, think of things, see things that are going to be beyond my abilities. But my pride wants them to go through a little bit of what I went through. It's kind of, we face that with our children, that if I had the choice to put my sons on the road for 45 weeks a year away from their families, I would never ask them to do that. But then my pride gets in the way and I'm like, man, before I turn over the keys here, they need to have a little pain and suffering like I did. So the good thing is I've put that on the table. I've asked, for their forgiveness, and that's a tough one with the next generation, because man, to get to where we're at, it's been buckets of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah. So now you have Elite Stone, then you added KBD. You want to tell us about how you added the cabinet shop?
Yeah. So this has been this was a tricky one and still is a little bit of a challenge. But so when we were doing Elite Stone countertops, Kitchens by Design in Iowa City was our number 2 account. When the Palmer family sold RJ's to the Ferguson Group, part of their sales agreement was that KBD Iowa City had to dissolve. They could not sell it as an entity, and the Palmer family could not continue to operate it as an entity. Well, from a business standpoint, I didn't want to see our number 2 account, go away. That was a tremendous amount of business for us. And so during that process, the Ferguson company, after they had taken over, met with the KBD Iowa City staff and informed them that they were all going to be let go and they were just going to shut the doors. So I jumped in and I was able to assemble that same staff. In fact, we even took over the lease of the existing showroom. And so we were able to keep that team together and then resurrect and just keep KBD Iowa City going. Well, that's a little bit of a difficulty, because now selling countertops to other cabinet stores in the area, now I was looked upon as a competitor in the cabinet business. And I get that, and it was perfectly rational. But over the years, I think we have earned the respect that we have never, ever crossed a line. We have never, backdoored anybody, and we operate Elite Stone in the KBD Illuminate division completely separate with full respect and transparency to all of our partners. So that's how we started in the cabinet business. Now, when I did that, I instantly lost some partners in the cabinet industry, which is logical. So then we're kind of in this arms race that if we're going to be in the cabinet business, you have to be in enough to sustain our countertop business. So then about a year or two later, KBD in Davenport became up for sale, and that was our number one account. So then we bought KBD Davenport, and then we started KBD Cedar Rapids, started KBD North Liberty, and Illuminate. So now we have those 4 locations.
And you're in Dyersville too, right?
Yeah, yep. And that's an Elite Stone showroom. Yeah, we just opened that March of this year.
24/7. Tell us about that.
24/7.
Right. No, you can go into Dyersville.
Oh, yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the really, really attractive things about that showroom is that given people's schedules these days and how busy we all are, it's very difficult to get whether it's a pre-sold home or a remodel customer, trying to get a customer to a business during business hours. It's a challenge. So what we've done to try to make that more flexible and again to provide solutions for our customers, we have an electronic keypad. So our Dyersville showroom is accessible 24/7 to all of our partners. And that's
great.
Yeah, it's been a huge receptive step forward for us.
I think that's really neat. So your company's Elite Stone, you've also expanded Des Moines and going into Omaha?
Correct. Yep. So in Des Moines, we have a partner. I don't own any shares of it, but we have a partner in Des Moines who we supply all of their countertops for. And then we just opened up a showroom in Omaha, which is a joint venture between myself and the Des Moines owner. So now we have a Omaha showroom as well.
What do you attribute to your success here? It seems to me that I haven't been around it for inside the company. The managers handle all the buying decisions and whatnot, and it just seems to me, and I've told you this before, that in the last 2 or 3 years, you guys have just really went crazy or just expanded and just marvelous business. And what do you attribute that to?
Well,
your success.
Yeah, for me, it's all God's sovereignty, 100%. If it was up to me, we should have been out of business 1,000 times.
Right.
And that's between some of the circumstances I was given and also a lot of decisions that I made were not the right or wise decision. And so I truly believe that. And so why are we seeing some success now? I fully attribute that to that I have changed my heart, that now our focus is not to serve ourselves with business, but to use business to serve others.
And you also serve your employees too, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You take care of your folks. And
yeah, we try. I mean, that's, you know how that is, that we have to, it's kind of like Coach Skipper,
Right.
You have to steer the ship and you've got to be the commander, and you have to make sure we're all rowing in the right direction, and there has to be accountability. So you're trying to balance that. We have to keep everybody accountable, but it's also we're a family, and we definitely have to care for one another and be there for one another. And it goes way, way beyond just a paycheck transaction.
Tell us what your thoughts are for Elite Stone for the next 5 to 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah,
well, goals.
Yeah, we're in an exciting spot. So we're looking at maximizing basically eastern Wisconsin, eastern Illinois to the Minnesota border, Missouri border, out to Lincoln, Nebraska.
Wow.
And so the next 3 to 5 years is how can we maximize our market potential in that area. We are on our second round of plans. So if anybody visits our shop, you can see that we've been piecemealing it together for 25 years. It's gotten us this far. It's just not ideal. One of the big things for me as I get older is safety for my employees becomes the number one priority. So we're just in the midst of planning for a new factory. So that's That's really my next huge step. And so we're hoping to get that built within the next 2 to 3 years. And so that will take us out to about 5 years. Once we get that online, see how far the current market takes us. And at that point, knowing that we have this next generation coming up, I'm hoping to hand off the operational baton. I'm not going to go anywhere. I don't have any visions of retirement. I want to be engaged. I enjoy it. I want to be active, but I'm going to kind of let them steer, what does it look like after that 3 to 5 years? I want to put them in a place where I feel really, really good that we've gotten to this point, and then where they go from there for the next 10 to 20, 30 years will be really fascinating to see.
Up to them. So you're going to manufacture out of Lisbon and distribute to Des Moines and Omaha or Wisconsin, or all around. Right?
Correct. Yep. Right now we're taking 3 semi-loads a week out to Des Moines. And then also once a week, we'll take loads out to Omaha.
And you have your own trucks and transit in and out.
Yep, we do. We do everything in-house.
Great. Let's swing into a little bit about Mount Vernon football if you want.
I absolutely love to talk Mount Vernon football.
Coach. This sounds like a great year for you guys. So tell us a little bit about, coming from Central and what you learned from Skipper, and then how you can attribute that to the defensive coach at Mount Vernon and your new head coach. And tell us a little bit about the kids if you want.
Oh, absolutely. Well, one real practical one that I just, as you get older, you kind of have more of an appreciation for history. So we are a slanting defense. So people that don't know what that means is our front linemen, what we run a 3-4-5 front, whatever that is, 99% of the time we're slanting one direction or the other. Well, I learned that at Central. And if you go one step further, Ron Skipper grew up in Michigan. He was a grad assistant at the University of Michigan. So if you go one step further, Bo Schembechler ran the slanting defense. So I had a really, really cool opportunity with our kids a few weeks ago where I was able to find some old archives of Michigan practices back in Bo Schembechler's days showing the slanting technique, which is exactly what we do. So I kind of gave them a little historical lesson that what they're doing today in Mt Vernon, Iowa, has roots going back to Central College football, a Hall of Fame coach, and Michigan football, a Hall of Fame coach. So that's just kind of a fun little sidebar. But
and then Bo coached with Woody Hayes, right?
Yeah, and it goes back to Woody Hayes. You're exactly right. Yeah, it goes one step further. So yeah, it's awesome. But anyway, I don't know. As a young kid, maybe that bored them, but someday they'll appreciate that. Yeah.
So it sounds like you had a great team. Looking forward to the season.
Yeah, we're excited. You always temper that with injuries are a part of the game every year. So we always temper our enthusiasm with, where those injuries going to happen, how severe. But, we're solid. We've got an extremely talented group of seniors. It's an exciting year for me because I've got oh boy, I always have to temper it, but
7 or 8 back from last year.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think 7, if not 8 starters back on defense, and I've got the most talented defensive line I've ever coached.
You got a really big kid too to try to tackle.
Yeah, we've got several.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
No, see, I don't want to give any locker room material for Solon.
Yeah,
so I got to temper it.
You got to be careful.
Yeah.
Well, good. So, do you tell us about how what your mindset is coaching, and obviously enjoy it, and what are you trying to teach the kids, because they're going to come back 5, 10, 20 years from now and say, Coach Krob, here's what. Maybe have families, and you're trying to teach them to be leaders, young men, right?
Yeah,
it's more than football, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I wish I knew who. This was a book I read, and I wish I knew who this quote was attributable to, but. You hear Lance Peterson say this a lot, and I could not agree with this more, and this is a direct answer to your question. And so this coach was asked a question. Coach, this was right after a season was over. How was your how would you rate your season this year? And he said, I can't answer that for 25 years, because in 25 years, when I see how these players have integrated in society as a husband, as a father, as a citizen, as a community leader, he said, then I will be able to tell you what kind of a job our staff did this year. And that sums it up, because what we're trying to do goes way, way beyond the game of football and X's and O's. We're trying to build that first one of the blocks of foundations of putting them on a path to success for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And I think football, I love all athletics, but I think football is special because you've got 11 individuals that at a second in time are all counting on one another to do the right thing so that as a group of 11, they can be successful.
Right.
And that is a difficulty, but when you see that achieved, it is an absolute thing of beauty. But that goes into business. When you've got your team assembled, well, you have to engage, and everybody's got to engage in the right manner for that team to be successful. A family, everybody in the family has got their role, and for the entity to be successful, the individual has to be successful. So I could go on and on and on. I just think football is, the absolute one of the best foundational builders for the rest of your life. And that's
It's way more than X's and O's.
Oh, my.
Way more.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, I think people, obviously it's brutal. It's a lot of contact. It's hard work. But what's life? And if you're going to build a business or be in business or whatever you're in, you need that foundation, that accountability. You miss a block and you're showing the tapes on Monday. That's what we used to do, the old 30, whatever that.
Yeah.
Oh, look, hey, Watts missed a block over here. Well, that didn't look real good.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you don't want to let your teammates down.
Yeah.
It's not that you missed it, but you felt bad for the group.
Yeah.
So it is a band of brothers, the way I see it.
Oh, absolutely. And along those lines, Coach Meester is really teaching the boys this year what makes a champion isn't doing every assignment correct. What defines a champion is what do you do when you didn't do an assignment correct.
Right.
And that's the same thing in business. We're going to make wrong decisions. We're going to have bad days. That's not what defines a champion. It's what do you do next?
Right.
That's what it's all about.
We've had the joy of Coach Meester now and then Lance Peterson. So you had great head coaches.
Oh, man, I've been so blessed. It's just, we go to practice, and with Lance, the last few years, just being a part of his staff was just unbelievable. Now with Coach Meester, you go to practice, and when the offense is going, or I get to hear the offensive coaches speak or Coach Meester address the team, I'm getting as much out of it as the kids. Right. And it's an unbelievable privilege to be a part of that.
It's inspiring.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit. I know you're active in FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and talk briefly, because we're going to wrap up here fairly soon. Talk briefly about how coaches can be an inspiration to kids, and how you look back at past coaches. You mentioned Coach Smith, Coach Skipper. And tell us a little bit about FCA and your involvement.
Well, obviously loving sports, loving God, FCA is just a perfect combination to bring those two together. So it's just a really good match for what I enjoy, what I believe in. So I think it's a great combination. Speaking about the role of a coach, I was in a coaching clinic this winter, and I think I shared this with you earlier, but the speaker challenged us to name the Super Bowl champion, and he picked a random year. Say it's 2011, or what? I think this is how he prefaced it. Can you name the winner of the 2011 Super Bowl or your high school football coach? Which can you name quicker? Well, instantly everybody in the room could name their high school football coach. Right. Now, that doesn't mean all those interactions were positive, because we've all seen that, coaches can also be a negative influence. Right. But the point of his message was that goes with you for life.
Right.
And if we know that, and if we can be a positive example and a positive part of their life in that short period of interaction, that is just an unbelievable privilege and opportunity. And then as a staff, we talk all the time. We get a group of 85 14 to 18-year-olds together, and time stands still. When a coach speaks, time stands still. Well, where else would you be able to get 85 14 to 18-year-old boys who are just all over the place? Where else could you achieve that? So it comes with a tremendous amount of weight and responsibility. So to know that those kids are not only listening to every word, but they're also observing, hey, coach might talk this way, but when we get to Friday night and it's crunch time, what does he actually do? Because talk is cheap. Can we live out what we teach and what we're sharing with them? And that's an unbelievable weight, but opportunity. And if we can do that well, we're not perfect, but if we can do that well, what that can be used for all of those kids that are there, how they can use that for the rest of their lives. Because there's a lot of kids that come in, we talk about Haiti.
Right.
Oh my, there's some kids coming in with stuff going on that I can't even get my mind wrapped around. And they're still showing up.
Right.
And man, we get that little bit of opportunity, whether it's during the season or during their career. We want to take every second of that and make it a positive impact.
It also, FCA works for both boys and girls, right?
Oh, absolutely. And across all sports. I'm
sports.
kind of focused on football,
Right,
but
right.
yeah, across all sports, all gender. And boy, but they understand what we were talking about.
Right.
They understand the impact a coach can have, and they want to funnel the news of the gospel through that coach to athlete, because that is such an unbelievable special connection and relationship.
Well, it's a great job you're doing. It's an inspiration for all of us. I was just sitting there thinking last year I had our 50th class reunion. Guess what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Some of our coaches.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some
more
good,
games,
some bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we all got to laugh about it. So
Yeah.
let's finish up. I always try to do the 3 H's.
Yeah.
So hero, hardship, and highlight. So who's your hero?
Earthly hero, I had an unbelievable opportunity to have great uncles. So I have 2 uncles that have just been unbelievable role models for me, my Uncle Charlie and Uncle Pete. And just to be able to observe them my entire childhood, how they kept their priorities straight, how they kept God first. Yeah, for sure. My 2 uncles, it's just been an unbelievable example for my life.
Great. How about a hardship?
First 25 years of business.
Every Being on the road, away from your family.
Yeah, financial pressures, it was all difficult. But, in hindsight, and all of us in life can attest to this, that when we look back, we see those moments of growth where we move forward the most and grow the most, is where we were in those difficult situations. So, yeah, those were extremely difficult. But I wouldn't be here today without those. It just every moment was used to shape me to hopefully get squared away and do what I'm supposed to do.
So you went through that for a reason, for a purpose, and here you are.
Yeah.
So
I
it's a teaching moment, right? You may not want to redo it again, but there's a lot of strength you gathered from it, right?
Yeah, I believe that, and I'm 100% convinced that going back to I started in business wanting to serve myself. It was all about me. My pride, my ego, materialistic views of what can I build for myself. And I hate to admit, but my heart was so hard and my head so thick that most people probably could have learned that lesson in a year. It took me 25. And it's not to say I don't struggle with those today, but using those 25 years to reshape that, now I go to work not for self, but for service. And employees are part of that, but the greater good of what can we do to use this vehicle to further God's work.
Well, the funny thing, it's not funny, I don't know, but part of we can't go back in time, can we?
No.
As we're older, as you get older, you go, I wish, no, there's no redos. You did it.
Yep.
And you can think about it and learn from it, but you can't go back.
Yeah.
You got to make the best of it going forward.
Yeah, and that's all we can do. Yeah,
right.
There's never a wasted day as long as we learn something and take it forward.
Highlight. Let's finish with highlight.
It'd be meeting my first date with my wife and every day since.
And you remember that, right?
I do.
Where'd you go?
We went to, it's a Mexican restaurant. So.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, we went to a Mexican restaurant. So I'll just, if we got.
At Central?
No, it was later. So it was after college, but we got 30 seconds because this is one of the pivotal moments of my life.
Okay, good.
So I was dating a girl in college. I won't say her name because I don't want to embarrass her, but every single thing that was attractive from a worldly perspective. Her dad was a college basketball coach, multiple homes, lots of money, captain of the tennis squad, very pretty. So every single thing that would lead you to believe, wow, that's a pretty good possibility for a mate in life. Well, after college, we were still kind of dating. I knew in my soul she was not the proper spouse for me. I'm not saying she's not for someone else, so I'm not saying that, just for me. And so I was in my rented bedroom in Muscatine. I couldn't afford an apartment or house, so I was able to afford to rent one bed. And luckily the guy let me share his bathroom. But laying there one night, and I said, God, I would rather be single for life than to be married to the wrong person. And so letting that go, within a week, my aunt sent me a letter and said, "Hey, Stacy is available. If you're interested, here's her phone number." And so, like, within a few weeks, we had our first date, and I came home that night and I told my mom, I said, "That's who I'm going to marry." And
That was
the
it.
rest is history. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Eric, anything else that you'd like to bring up today? Anything
Well,
else?
I would just stop by. It's been my absolute privilege, Gary, to get to know you just a little bit better and spending some time in Montana. As we get older, what I am really enjoying about this stage of life is relationships and getting to meet people, to share life with people. And man, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate getting to know you. And I can't wait to see how it looks like going forward. I hope we have lots of other opportunities to spend time together.
And Montana's fantastic. And if you haven't been to Montana, go to Montana. It's beautiful.
Montana's pretty nice.
I got to stay away when I see grizzly bears. They can't outrun them. I found that out. So
That's right.
I'm glad he's a long ways away. So
That's where we like them to stay.
So anyway, it's been great, Eric.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.